Have you been thinking about taking a Eastern Mediterranean cruise? Well, we recently went on one, and we wanted to give you an overview of what ours look like to see if maybe this is a cruise that you want to take. So we recently took a 7-night Mediterranean cruise, Eastern Mediterranean cruise, from Rome to Athens. We chose this cruise because of the ports of call and excursions that were available. There were a lot of things that we really wanted to see, and this cruise had the majority of them. We flew into Rome a couple days early before the cruise. We chose to stay at an Airbnb because it was located more in the heart of the area that we really wanted to see. There were several hotels around the area as well, but they were a little further out from where we wanted to be. If you're going to Rome and you don't mind renting Airbnbs, if you're comfortable with that, then I would recommend doing that. We had a great time and our host was fantastic. I would also recommend coming in a couple days early like we did, especially if there's a lot of things that you want to see around the area. Now, when we first arrived, it was a little later in the afternoon, so we did not have time to get a tour or excursion set up, so we arranged one for the next day. On the day we arrived, we just spent that afternoon exploring the area around our Airbnb. The next day, our private tour company picked us up at our Airbnb to take us on our tour. Now, you can get excursions and group tours set up around the city. They even have hop-on, hop-off tours that you can take and get on a bus. We chose to have the private tour company here as well as many other ports that we stopped at along our trip because we wanted to get the most out of it while we were there. Because let's just face it, you never know when you're going to get to come back to a place like this, if you ever will. Not only is a private tour good for getting you around to see all the sights, but the city is also huge and really difficult to navigate if you don't know where you're going or what you're doing. So if you're new to the area and you don't have a lot of time to spend trying to find your way around, then a private tour company is a great way to see the sights and save a little time. We had our tour company take us to a lot of the places that we really wanted to see, including the Colosseum, which was amazing, and you should definitely put this on your list of places to see. We also went by Vatican City, where the Pope lives, the Trevi Fountain, which I didn't really think that I would be into fountains, but our tour guide said this was something that we should really go see, and we did, and it was amazing. I'm glad that we did that and took his recommendation for that day. So we also got to go see St. Peter's Basilica and the Pantheon. These were just a few of the stops that we did on our Rome tour. There's so much more to see in this city, and you could easily spend 2 or 3 days here before you get on the cruise ship, and probably even more. This city is just full of history and great food. So the next day, we caught a ride down to the cruise port where we boarded the Princess cruise line. Now, we chose Princess because we've sailed on them many times before and had a great time. We could tell right away that it was geared a little more toward the older crowd versus the younger crowd. And the thing that tipped it off the most was that they had a daily arthritis seminar. So if you fall in that crowd that you have arthritis and you want to go to a daily seminar, well, this is definitely the cruise for you. Now, even though that they catered to the older crowd, that doesn't mean that we didn't find plenty to do. There was still a lot there, and our teenage kids still had a blast. You have so much going on from port to port, you really don't have that much downtime on the ship. We had 1 sea day out of the 7, and the rest of the time we were at port all day long. We'd come back, clean up, eat, go to bed, and get up and do it all over again. Princess Cruise was great. I'd highly recommend it. They had great rooms, staff was amazing, food was fantastic, and entertainment, well, those guys put on a great show. They had plenty to do, and we never got bored. So our first port of call was in Naples, Italy. Now, we really wanted to go here. They had a couple great excursions that we wanted to take. We ended up setting up a private tour to make sure that we got to do both of them. They have a lot to do in this area. One of them was Pompeii, we really wanted to go to, and the other was the Amalfi Coast. You hear that saying all the time, you just have to go. Pictures don't do it just. I'm going to have to say that. It really does not do it justice. The Amalfi Coast is absolutely beautiful. My wife had one request. She wanted to eat lunch with a view. She's seen something, I don't know if it's Facebook or Pinterest or what, but it had a beautiful view in the background where people were eating at this table. And after searching and a lot of walking, we found it. She still talks about it to this day. The best spaghetti she's ever eaten. So she had the highlight of her trip. She got her meal with a view. So if you get to Naples and you're looking for a place to go with a view, you be sure to stop in Positano. That's where we had our lunch with the view. So after our excursion along the Amalfi coast, we headed back over the mountain towards the ancient city of Pompeii. I'm sure that you've probably heard of Pompeii. It's the famous city that is pretty well frozen in time from the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. After the volcano erupted, the ash that fell sealed the city in a time capsule. This is one of the most preserved cities in the world. You can even see preserved bodies from the residents on their last day there. This place was amazing. They're still working and excavating even more of the city. If you plan on going, this place is huge. It can easily take you a day or two to go through. And if you're one of those people that like to stop and read everything, it could take even longer. We got a private tour company to take us around and even hired a private guide while we were there. And she was amazing. Having that person to take you around, show you what you're seeing. All the signs and stuff around the city are in foreign language from the ancient times. So unless you're fluent in the language of the area that you're visiting, you need somebody to help you out. And having a guide that knew the area so well, she was able to take us to all the best sites around Pompeii so we could see those on the short amount of time that we had there. Our guide was able to give us the history of Pompeii as well as a lot of the history from some shop owners, some house owners, and different things that they've learned during their excavations through stories that have been written on the walls. This was our final stop in Naples before heading back to the cruise ship. So the next day we docked in Crete, Greece. Now we did have a tour company here, but we did not get a private tour for this one. We got a group tour, but it was small enough. There was only one other family with us. So having a small group like that is still great, and it's almost like having a private tour. So in case you didn't know, Crete, Greece is supposed to be the birthplace of Zeus, the Greek god. And one of our first stops was to his birthplace, or birth cave, I guess. The story goes that Zeus's mother was trying to escape his dad, Kronos, who was eating the children. And she was pregnant with Zeus, fled to Crete, Greece, hid in this cave, gave birth, and then stayed there until he was old enough to fight his dad, overthrow him, and take the title of King of the Gods. So I just want to warn you real quick, though, if you plan on going and you want to see Zeus's cave, this was pretty strenuous. It's a long way up to the mountain from where you have to park. So I would say we probably walked good 15, 20 minutes uphill, and the path is only nice in the first, probably quarter mile. And then after that, it's kind of rocky and it's really hard to get to. And once you climb the mountain, zigzagging up, then you have to go down into the cave to get to the bottom of it. And then you go around the bottom and then back up these long stairs. So if you're one of those people that have trouble with these type of excursions or paths, then I would say that you may want to avoid this excursion. If you want to give it a go and see how far you can make it up, there are some resting places along the path as you head up the mountain. Another place that we stopped along the way was a goat farm where the farmers there still made cheese the way they did in ancient times. So one of the highlights was, of course, the baby goats for my children, but you also got to sample a lot of the cheese that the farmers made right there. And if you wanted to, you could even buy some to bring back with you. So after we left the baby goats, we stopped at several other small villages along the way on our way back to the cruise port. The next day we docked in Kusadasi Turkey. I'm sure I messed this up. In Kusadasi Turkey, where we prearranged a private tour company that met us at the port. There were a couple places here that we really wanted to see around the area, and we felt that a private tour company was going to allow us the best opportunity to get to see that, as well as have a guide that tells us more about the history as we travel around the region. Our first stop was to what is believed to be Virgin Mary's house. This is where her and John fled to after the crucifixion of Jesus. This place isn't very far from the ancient city of Ephesus, which is the other place that we really wanted to see. Now, if you're going to go here, it does get pretty hot in the middle of the day, much like Pompeii. So in both areas, I would highly recommend to bring an umbrella, some bottle of water, or something to help shade the sun. Because in the middle of the day, it's beating down on you and there's really no shade around, and the water is very limited as well. Ephesus had so many well-preserved buildings here. Our guide helped explain how the city was laid out and what the daily life here was like. There are still some ancient game boards carved into the stone that was located in front of the stores. Our guide said that the store workers or owners would sit out front and play games and try to draw customers in. We really enjoyed our time here, and then at the end of the day, we were hot and tired and headed back to the cruise port. So our next port of call was Istanbul, Turkey. This is one of the largest cities in the world at almost 15.5 million people. And it definitely feels like it. It was crowded and people everywhere. This definitely wasn't my favorite cruise port. They did have a lot of neat history here that I did enjoy. We got to see a lot of historical places, as well as visiting places like the Blue Mosque, the Grand Bazaar, the Sultan's Palace. But because of the crowds, it was just really hard to enjoy it. I'm sure there's probably an off season, but it wasn't when we went in the summertime. So if you're wanting to go here and you're not a big crowd person, well, this may not be the port for you. I would recommend either staying on the cruise ship, or if you definitely want to get out, you can get out and go to the port area, which isn't too bad, or you can even take an excursion to where they drive you around the city and show you some highlights while you're looking out the window. So one of our last ports before we arrived in Athens was Mykonos, Greece. Now, Mykonos is a smaller island. They have a lot of great shopping opportunities and fantastic food here. This is a beautiful coastal town with its white buildings. They have a lot of great shopping areas and eateries. Because this town wasn't very big, we didn't plan an excursion. We just decided to explore on our own. We did find a little microbrewery located just outside of the city where we were at. When we're in different countries, I like to go to the little microbreweries and try the local craft beers. The people in Mykonos are so friendly. The workers at the brewery were great as well. They spoke really good English. They were able to explain all the beer, where it comes from, the local ingredients they use, and even talk to us a little bit about their culture and history. You can learn so much by going to little areas like this and just talking with the locals. One of the highlights of Mykonos was getting to try an authentic Greek gyro. Now, we were told by a local while we were there that they are pronounced gyro, not hero or gyro. So if you're unsure of the correct pronunciation, it is gyro, not gyro or hero. Just saying. We were told about this place called Sakis. They were supposed to have some really good, authentic Greek gyros. So it wasn't too far from where we were at, so we walked over there, and you could tell it had to be a good place to eat because it was crowded. After sampling the gyros here, I would say that you definitely need to put this on your list of places to eat if you're ever in Mykonos. So the final stop on our cruise was in Athens, Greece. Now, like in Rome, we decided to get an Airbnb and stay a couple days before we got on a plane to go back to the States. After getting off the cruise ship and getting to the Airbnb and unloading, it was getting a little later in the day, so we chose not to get any tours or excursions for that afternoon. So instead, we decided to explore a little on our own. And once again, we got an Airbnb that was located in the vicinity of the places that we really wanted to see the most. The next day, we had a private tour company that picked us up at our Airbnb and took us around. We got to see places like Athena's Temple. And like in Rome, when you hear of Rome or you think of Rome, one of the places that come to mind is the Colosseum. Well, when you think of Athens, Greece, one of the things that you see the most in photos and movies is Athena's Temple, sitting high on the hill overlooking the city. So we got to go up there, and it was real neat. They have a lot of other temples for Greek gods and goddesses around the area up there as well. Some other things we got to see: we watched the changing of the guard. We went to several museums. The museums are just packed full of archaeological items that's been excavated from right around the area. We got to visit the modern Olympic Stadium as well as other historical places around the area. Our guide was able to tell us so much about the ancient Greeks and their culture. And I didn't realize that so much of our modern culture comes from the ancient Greeks. Did you know that the word alphabet actually comes from the Greek alphabet, the first two letters, alpha and beta? Alpha, beta, alphabet? Who knew? And that's just one of the many things that the ancient Greeks did to influence our modern society. This was a great cruise line, not only for the old, but for the young as well. If you're looking to go on a Mediterranean cruise, our experience on Princess was great, and I think it would be great for you too. If you want a more in-depth review of some of these locations, be sure to watch some of our other videos. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, please hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you get notified of our next video, and we will see you on the next adventure.